In the language sciences, a corpus is a body of written text or transcribed speech which can serve as a basis for linguistic analysis and description. Over the last 3 decades, the compilation and analysis of corpora stored in the computerized databases has led to a new scholarly enterprise known as corpus linguistics. The purpose of this book is to introduce the various activities which come under the scope of corpus linguistics and uh, to set current work within its historical context. However, such a speed of development and change in corpus linguistics at the present time that anyone writing about it must be conscious that it would be easy to produce a Ptolemaic picture of the field with a world distorted and with Terra Australis Incognita and Great Southern Continent both misconceived and misplaced. It also needs to be understood at the outset that not every use of computers with bodies of text is part of corpus linguistics. For example, the aim of Project Gutenberg to distribute 10,000 texts to 100 million computer users by the year 2001 is not in itself part of corpus linguistics, although texts included in this ambitious project may conceivably provide textual data for corpus analysis. Similarly, contemporary reviews of computing and humanities show the enormous extent of corpus-based work in literary studies. While some of the methodology used in literary studies resembles some of the activity being undertaken in corpus linguistics on authorial attribution or thematic structure, for example, that does not come within the scope of this book. This book does not even cover the book does not attempt to cover systematically the wide range of corpus-based work being undertaken in computational linguistics in such areas of natural language processing as speech recognition and machine translation. Many of the key problems and challenges in corpus linguistics are associated with the following questions. The first, how can we best exploit the opportunities which arise from having the text stored in machine retrievable form? Next, what linguistic theories will best help structure corpus based research? And what linguistic phenomena should we look for? The last, what applications can make use of the insights and improved descriptions of languages which come out of this research? Corpora. Some dictionary definitions suggest that corpora necessarily consists of structured collections of texts specifically compiled for linguistic analysis, that they are large or that they attempt to be the representative of language as a whole. Corpora have been compiled for many different purposes, which in turn influence the design, size, and nature of the individual corpus. Some of the current corpus intended for linguistic research have been designed for general descriptive purpose, that is, designed for examined, that they can be examined to answer questions on various linguistic levels on prosody, lexis, grammar, discourse patterns, or pragmatics. Other corpora have been designed for specialized purposes such as discovering which words or word meanings should be included in a learner's dictionary, which words or meanings are the most frequently used by workers in oil industry or economics, or what differences there are between uses of language in different geographical, social, historical, or work-related contexts. It is generally the case, as Leach 1991 suggested, that the difference between an archive and a corpus must be that the latter is designed or required for a particular representative function. It is nevertheless not always easy to see unequivocally what a corpus is represented in terms of language variety. Databases which are made up of not of samples, but which constitute an entire population of data, may consist of a single book, example George Eliot's Middlemarch, or of a number of works. These corpora may be the work of a single author, example the complete works of Jane Austen, or of several authors, like medieval lyrics, or all the editions of a particular newspaper in a given year. Projects have assembled all the known available texts in a particular genre or from a particular historical period. A corpus can be analyzed and compared with other corpora or parts of corpora to study variation. Most importantly, it can be analyzed distributionally to show how often particular phonological, lexical, grammatical, discursive, or pragmatic features occur, and also where they occur. The development of more powerful microcomputers from the mid 1970s and the advent of the CD-ROM in 1980s made corpus-based research more accessible to a much wider range of participants. By the 1990s, there were many corpus making projects in various parts of the world. Lancashire 1991 shows the huge range of corpora archives and other electronic databases available or being compiled for a wide variety of purposes. The analysis of huge bodies of text by hand can be prone to error and is not always exhaustive and easily replicable. Although manual analysis has made an important contribution over the centuries, especially in lexicography, it was the availability of the digital computers from the mid of the 20th century which brought about a radical change in text based scholarship. Rather than initiating corpus research, developments in information technology changed the way we work with corpora. Instead of using index cards and dictionary slips, lexicographers and grammarians could use computers to store huge amounts of texts and retrieve particular words, phrases, or whole chunks of the text in context quickly, exhaustively on their screens. Furthermore, the linguistic items could be stored in many different ways, for example, taking account of the items they collocate with and their typical grammatical behavior. Corpus linguistics is thus now inextricably linked to the computer, which has introduced incredible speed, total accountability, accurate replicability, statistical reliability, and the ability to handle huge amounts of data. With modern software, computer based corpora are easily accessible, greatly reducing the drudgery and sheer bureaucracy of dealing with the increasingly large amounts of data used for compiling dictionaries and other information sources. Some ideas of the changes which the computer has made possible in the text studies can be gauged from a report in an early issue of the ALLC Bulletin, the forerunner of the journal Literary and Linguistic Computing. The brief report by Govindan Kutty 1973 on the coming of the computer to Dravidian languages captures the moment of transition between manual and electronic databases. The text he was working with of 300,000 words or 3 lakh words is small by today's standards, but what took the researcher, his long suffering colleagues, nearly 6 years of data management. 20 years later, this can be carried out in minutes. This could be. It took nearly 6 years hard labor and the cooperation of the colleagues and students to make the index of Kamparamayanam. Kamparamayanam, the longest Middle Tamil text in the Kerala University under the supervision of Professor V.I. Subramaniam. The text consists of the nearly 12,500 stanzas, and each stanza has 4 lines. Each line has an average of 6 words. All the words and some of the suffixes were listed on small cards by the late Mr. T. Velavan. Who is the architect of this voluminous index? Later, the cards were sorted into alphabetical order and each item was again arranged according to the ascending order of the stanza and line. Finally, each entry was checked with the text and the meaning, and the grammatical categories were noted. The completed index consists of about 3,500 typed pages. So 3,500 typed pages, 28 into 20 centimeters sized. While indexing some suffixes such as case were listed separately, this posed some problems when I started to work on the grammar of the language of the text. When it was necessary to find out after what kind of words and after which phonemes and morphemes the alternants of the suffix occur, it became necessary again to go through all the entries. Though I have tried to work out the frequency of all the suffixes for want of time, it was not completely possible. However, the frequency study helped to unearth the different strata of the linguistic excavation and indirectly emphasized that it is a sine qua non, at least for such a descriptive and historical study. Though it took a lot of time, energy, and patience, the birth of the index brought with it an unknown optimism of the grammatical description. After completing the index and the grammatical study at Kamparamayanam 3 months ago, I started indexing Ramcharitam, an early Malayalam text using small cards. This project is being carried out in the Leiden University with the guidance of Professor F.B.J. Keeper. While I was half my way through the indexing, Dr. B.J. Hoff of the Linguistics Department informed me of the work done in the Institute of Dutch Lexicography with the help of computer. When I discussed the problems with Dr. F. de Tollenaer, Tollenaer who is the head of this institute, he outlined great enthusiasm how a computer can be utilized for this purpose. Immediately, I started transcribing the text, and now it is being punched on the paper tape using an ARBA paper tape punch at the institute. This paper tape punch, having an extra shift, has twice the 88 standard possibilities, which results in 176 different punches or punch codes, which for the computer has value of 176 characters. Moreover, a coding system makes it possible to have up to 276 possibilities, which are also available at the output stage as the institute has at its disposal. A print train has a print train with 276 symbols. To a present day corpus linguist, even the laborious data entry by punched paper seems quaintly archaic, and Govinda Kutti's work could now be undertaken on a personal computer accessed directly through a keyboard. Until the mid 1980s, corpus linguistics typically involved mainframe computing and was largely associated with the universities having access to large machines. In the 1970s, we shared access to a standard mainframe. It could take an hour or more to make a concordance consisting of all the instances of a word, such as when, in a 1 million word corpus. By the late 1980s, the time taken to run such a program had been reduced to minutes. In the 1990s, the same job can be done just as quickly on the faster personal computers running at 60 or more megahertz. Hard disk drives of 500 megabytes or more on personal computers and input from CD-ROM are now common, facilitating rapid analysis. The scope of corpus linguistics. Corpus linguistics is based on the bodies of text as domain of study and source of evidence. As Leach 1992 has noted, the focus of study is on performance rather than competence and on observation of language in use leading to theory rather than vice versa. In the case of corpus based research, the evidence is derived directly from texts. In this sense, corpus linguistics differs from approaches to language which depend on introspection for evidence. In his celebrated work, Coral Gardens and Their Magic, Malinowski, 1935, wrote about the paradigm shift which he considered was necessary in the linguistics of the day. Corpus linguists are concerned typically not only with the words, structures, or uses are possible in a language, but also with what is probable, what is likely to occur in a language use. Corpus linguistics, like all linguistics, is concerned primarily with the description and explanation of the nature, structure, and the use of language and languages, and with particular matters such as language acquisition, variation, and change. Corpus linguistics has nevertheless developed something of a life of its own within linguistics, with a tendency sometimes to focus on lexis and lexical grammar rather than pure syntax. The first group of researchers consists of a corpus makers or compilers. These scholars are concerned with the design and compilation of corpora, the collection of texts and their preparation and their storage for later analysis. A second group of researchers has been concerned with developing tools for analysis of corpora, important contributions to software development, especially for the syntactic analysis of corpora. These researchers have been concerned with the use of corpora to develop, among other things, algorithms for natural language processing and the modeling of linguistic theories. Third group of researchers consists of descriptive linguists whose main concern has been to make use of computerized corpora to describe reliably the lexicon and the grammar of languages, both in linguistic systems and we use and our likely use of those systems. That is, corpus based descriptive linguistics is concerned not only with what is said or written, where, when, and by whom, but how often particular forms are used. A fourth area of activity, which has been among the most innovative outcomes of the corpus revolution, has been the exploitation of corpus based linguistic description for use in a variety of applications, such as language learning and teaching and natural language processing by machine, including speech recognition and translation. Altenberg's 1991 A study of amplifier collocations in English, for example, raised questions about semantic classes of maximizers and boosters such as perfectly or awfully, which probably would not have been asked without the evidence of a corpus. He found, for example, that frequent maximizers such as quite tend to collocate with non-scalar words quite obviously, while absolutely has a greater tendency than other maximizers to collocate with negatives. Absolutely not. The major shift in methodology associated with corpus linguistics comes not from the theory but from what the use of corpus makes possible. As we have seen, corpus linguistics goes beyond the use of corpora as a source of evidence in linguistic description. It also revives and carries on a concern of some linguists with the statistical distribution of linguistic items in the context of use. From the 1920s, there was, especially in United States and United Kingdom, a tradition of word counting in the texts in order to discover the most frequent and arguably therefore the most pedagogically useful words and grammatical structures for language teaching purposes. The work of Thorndike and West described was particularly notable in this regard. From the 1930s, Prague school linguists undertook quantitative studies mainly in Czech, English, and Russian of the frequency of certain grammatical processes, the relative frequencies of different parts of speech, the location and distribution of information in the sentence, and the statistical distribution of syllable types and structures. Some of this work was directed towards comparative stylistic analysis. Example, Kramsky 1972, and some towards quantitative comparisons of varieties of English. Example, Duskova 1977. Such Prague School quantitative studies, which were carried out manually, differ from modern computer corpus based studies, particularly in the size of the corpus and in their representativeness. Daskova, for example, studied 10,000 finite verb forms from 10 plays to draw conclusions about the functions and the use of preterite and the perfect in British and American English, but it is not clear why these 10 plays were chosen as representative of contemporary English. The Prague School focus on quantitative studies was commendable at a time when orthodox linguistics eschewed them. Other quantitative studies were directed towards discovering the statistical laws of text. The work of American philologist George Zipf from the 1930s was concerned with such quantitative analysis as a relation between the frequency of words in a text and the text length. Zipf, 1949, sets out his famous law, which held that the relationship between the frequency of the use of a word in a text and the rank order of that word in a frequency list is a constant. Fx is equal to c. As noted above, the earliest computerized corpora compiled for linguistic research from the 1960s required the use of mainframe computers, and researchers frequently had to design their own software for analysis. Initial interest was often in lexis, including word counts, but it was quickly apparent then that a computer corpus facilitated the study of permissible or likely word sequences or collocations. Are we likely to write different from, different to, or different than? And grammatical and stylistic characteristics of particular authors and genres. There was a particular interest in what characterized scientific style, newspaper style, and literary or imaginative style. Recent works at Birmingham University, described by Renouf 1993, shows how new words and new uses can be identified in corpora at the time these words enter journalistic use. In March 1993, a Georgetown University roundtable meeting in Washington, D.C. on corpus based linguistics identified the following topics as those in particular need of investigation and dissemination at a time when linguistics was returning to more text based approaches to language. First, the design and development of text speech corpora. Second, tools for searching and processing online corpora. Third, critical assessments of online corpora and corpus processing tools. Fourth, methodological issues in corpus based analysis. And last, applications and results in linguistics and related disciplines, including language teaching, computational linguistics, historical linguistics, discourse analysis, and stylistic analysis.